All right. So thanks everyone for supporting the Seer single vinyl releases and joining us today. And thanks to Billy for making time to talk with everyone here and answer some really cool questions. I got a list of 10 that I think were curated from all the fans that participated in the vinyl single campaign. So Billy, if you're good with it, we can jump right in.
Shouldn't you tell me who the fuck you are first?
Oh yeah, I'm the evil record label man.
You're evil. You're the man I've railed against symbolically my whole life.
That's it. But I do have a camo Playboy dad hat, so that'll give me at least 5 minutes of street cred in this Zoom. My name's Ash Avildsen. I'm Billy Corgan's partner on his recorded music these days. So I'm the founder and CEO of Sumerian Records, which released Seer, and will hopefully be releasing all sorts of other wonderful creations from the mind of Billy and co.
We should break a little news. Ash and I have been talking about reissuing the albums that I pulled off the market. So Zeitgeist, Swan's album, my album Future Embrace, my unreleased Chicago Kid album. Ash and I are trying to put a deal together. So hopefully that'll come out through Sumerian very soon. So thank you, Ash, for showing interest in that. A lot of people in this chat have been on me for years to put those albums back out.
Yeah, and Zeitgeist, a lot of the content on there couldn't be more timely to the world.
Did I do well in guessing where it was all going? Did I do
insert crystal ball emoji, insert vampire emoji.
Not only did I get Shepard Fairey to do the cover, did a great job. You know, he of course had Lady Liberty sinking into the ocean. So how perfect.
Yeah. So good. So good. So yeah, I'm broadcasting on my iPhone. So unfortunately I can't.
Oh, there he goes. You've gone mute, Ash, if you can hear me. Can't hear you.
Host, there we go. Okay. So I'm broadcasting on my iPhone and reading off my laptop, so I can't see everyone's faces while we're doing this. But if there's something critical that needs to get said or asked, we'll try and navigate it the best we can. But if Billy's ready, we'll jump into the first question.
Sure.
So the first one is Ramona, which is the current single at radio and one of my favorites on the album. Ramona is a very prominent name in my town and family in the north of Spain, a land with a lot of witchcraft in their folklore. I was wondering if there is a specific Ramona that inspired you for your track.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever known a Ramona. An ex of mine used to say, "Who are all these women that you always name check in songs?" And I was like, well, I actually, whenever I name checked somebody, that said nobody I've ever known, because I had a song when I was young, Jennifer Ever, and I knew a Jennifer who was dating a friend of mine, and my girlfriend at the time got really mad thinking I was writing about this guy's girlfriend. So I learned at that point, somewhere in 1989, to not name check anybody I knew. So I've particularly never chosen names of people that I know. Hence Ruby and Ramona and Sally Mae and whatever else. So no, I don't know any Ramonas. But was there another part of the question other than do I know a Ramona?
No, the question was just if there was a specific Ramona that inspired you for your track. I remember the first time I met Billy in person was also the first time listening to some of the Seer songs. And now I had listened to with his management right before he walked in. And I was actually, after saying hi to Billy and shaking his hand, or I think we maybe elbow bumped because of COVID, I asked him, that was actually my first question. I go, so who's Ramona? Because it was such a great chorus. And I'd assumed it was an individual, but Billy had shared that it was kind of a culmination of multiple.
And you don't remember this, but you asked me who Ramona was. And I said, your future ex-wife.
Sounds about right. All right. So number 2, in the past, you mentioned that a lot of your songs start out acoustically and are later translated into an electric state. Was that the case with Seer? If so, what were some of the challenges you incurred with this album in regards to adapting that acoustic setting into a synth pop role?
Well, I mean, basically, the reason I write on acoustic or piano is because if I believe in the tune there, they usually translate well into rock dynamics. So it's not that difficult a translation point. For example, let's see if I don't know if you can hear this. So like, for example, the Seer riff on acoustic.
Oh, you
So
don't.
if you just pump that to a synth, so you just kind of riff the parts out into different things. So not that hard to do.
Okay, very cool. Question 3: how did the pandemic help or add to the creativity of the Seer release?
Well, that's a good question. For example, when I met Ash, we were already in process of putting together what became the In Ashes video set, the five animated videos. One thing Ash doesn't know is why that set is called In Ashes. Do you know why it's called In Ashes?
I don't, and I actually have a lot of questions about if Netflix or someone called and said, "Hey, put dialogue to all this. What's really going on?" Maybe we can talk about that after the Zoom. But I have a lot of questions about In Ashes. But yeah, let's do the name.
Now, this is the God's truth. Okay, so a lot of people on here, I hope, are Pumpkins fans, so they'll appreciate the joke. So Pumpkins' world is riddled with inside jokes and double entendres and stuff like that. So actually, In Ashes is named in tribute to you.
What?
Yeah, Ash.
He's just saying this to try and get the advance up bigger for the next record.
I'm dead serious.
Really?
Yeah, you never picked up on the joke.
So
here's Pumpkin logic. Okay, so it's named after you, right? Like Ash, but then signing with you, we're all going to go up in flames. So we're all going to end up in ashes.
Well played. Very good. Now I believe you.
See?
There had to be some dark, witty humor wrapped up into there. So
yeah, of course.
I love that.
So originally we weren't going to make any music videos at all because at that point the COVID restrictions were so intense. And then right about the time that we were putting out the first single, the restrictions relinquished just enough for us to make what became the Seer video. But like Jimmy and I had to record our parts at Zuzu's. Linda Strawberry recorded James and Jeff out in LA. You know what I mean? It was like a total cluster as far as trying to put together a conventional video. But thankfully the video did well and people liked the video and everyone got the Jimmy shimmy out of it. And so yeah, so it was a bit weird in that we were just trying to kind of make it up as we went along. And I think what was unfortunate, and I don't mean this in a negative way, was because of us pivoting to a more conventional strategy, which we were releasing videos, then in some ways the animated stuff didn't get the love that maybe it would have if it would have been the only thing. But that's just rock and roll. Stuff happens.
Very cool. Okay. Our fourth question: which song on Seer underwent the most changes from conception to album version, and how did it change?
Probably off the top of my head, probably the song Telegenics. I probably can't do it here. Originally it was like more like Sisters of Mercy. Can you hear that, Ash?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear that, but it's like, I'll play a little bit louder. So it was more of like a Sisters of Mercy, like a driving Sisters of Mercy thing. And then we got around to it and it was like, well, this just sounds like Sisters of Mercy, which I love Sisters of Mercy, but it's never a good thing just to do somebody else's trip. So we ended up slowing it down and it turned out to be one of my favorite songs on the record. Because it ends up being sort of more haunting and more spooky the way we end up doing it. But there's a classic example of a song that would have been more like a rock song in the mode of an Anno Santana or something. And
Right.
It ended up more like Confessions of a Dopamine, more like this kind of spooky post-apocalyptic massive attack vibe or something.
Nice. Our fifth question is, and by the way, Billy, we have some fun treasures in the Zoom chat window, which we'll see how we feel after the 10. But The fifth question is, what was the main inspiration for the artwork and sound of the Seer album?
Well, as I've talked about openly, there's this romantic thing, and Ash can talk about it from the record company side. People have this romantic notion of what the band used to sound like, which actually isn't that accurate. If you talk to a lot of radio directors and a lot of people who run labels, not Ash, they think the band's sound was Cherub Rock, Zero, and Bullet with Butterfly Wings. They conveniently overlooked 1979, Disarm, Landslide, So it's really weird, because what happened when Jimmy and I reformed the band around 2007, there was this like pressure to go back to being a guitar band, but not the guitar band that we were, a guitar band that exists only in people's brains. So having done that and having made records like Zeitgeist and Oceania and had kind of mixed results, and I'm being blunt when I say this, like, let's say a lot of the fan base liked those records because it was reminiscent. But as far as the rest of the world, I mean, the records couldn't have been more overlooked, because a lot of those people felt we didn't have anything new to say. So having done that, and then even hadn't made a record like Shiny Volume 1 with Rick Rubin, who wanted us to go back to like basics, which is kind of something Rick likes to do with a lot of artists he works with. My whole thing was like, if we're not going to say something new, let's just stop saying it. Let's just not make records and let's just tour. So we went back to our original modality, which goes back all the way to our goth roots in 1987 and 88, which is, if we're not going to make new music, like new Smashing Pumpkins music, not new music that sounds like the old music, but new Smashing Pumpkins music, we're not going to make it at all. And the cool thing about doing stuff like Seer as an album is we've circled back and cycled back now to more heavy music, which you'll hear on the next album, which hopefully Ash is going to put out, the 33-song monstrosity. There's a lot more riffing and a lot more kind of classic Pumpkins rock, but not because that's what we're trying to do. We've just kind of come back around to it from a fresh perspective. And that's much more in the modality of how we've always worked. As far as the artwork goes, I guess, when I was a kid, like I loved Rush 2112. They had the guy, like the pentagram guy. Like the first time I met Geddy Lee, I was like, you got to explain that dude to me, because I was always sort of obsessed with that guy, the sort of the naked pentagram guy. So I guess on some level it's based on the idea of this kind of, cosmic man or something.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great, Rush is a great cover. Question 6. Did you already have a vision of what you wanted Seer to be stylistically before you began working on it? Or did that develop over the course of writing and recording it?
No, it definitely developed. I think the breakthrough watershed moment for me was, and I'm going to try to keep it quick because that's something I could talk about for an hour and it would bore the shit out of everybody. But when I listen to a lot of new production, I don't care who it is, like the most pop artists, rap, even modern guitar music, which is obviously all of it's super influenced by technology and Pro Tools. I would sit there and try to do it, not because I wanted to do it, because I wanted to understand why people were doing what they were doing, why they were producing records this way as opposed to the way we grew up producing records, right? And I found myself, I would get so fucking bored, like searching for snare drums and the clap and all this shit that people do. We call it the flange conga effect, like put in the flange conga because it'll do something to the track, and you hear it in a lot of modern music. You don't really hear people playing anymore. You just hear a lot of machinery. So I just couldn't wrap my head on how to produce records like that, which is why I kind of flipped out when we were doing a record called Day for Night, which I abandoned, which was would have been the follow-up to Monuments. Anyway, long story short. So when I figured out that the music that I grew up on, like Susie and the Banshees and Sisters of Mercy and The Cure, that they did their own version of what would be kind of modernity, and I could kind of produce Pumpkins records through the sort of the prism of goth, then I was like, oh, I can do this all day. And so we started making what you would call kind of a rock goth record. And like I was talking about with Telegenics or something, like we would have those types of grooves. Sometimes it would veer into the Cars territory, sometimes it'd veer into the Sisters of Mercy territory, whatever. And even Color of Love, which for the unsophisticated is a nod to The Cure in a loving way, but people think we're just ripping The Cure off. I mean, couldn't be further from the truth, right? once I wrapped my head around that thing, then it just evolved from there. And then in typical Pumpkin fashion, it went on too long, and we tore it apart and put it back together 17 times. And so you can hear a song like Anno Santana, which we didn't necessarily get too far away from the root of, let's call it the goth pop rock thing, just kind of straight driving head kind of music, or Color of Love even. But then you listen to something like Confessions of a Dopamine Addict, Haunted, Telegenics, you hear this kind of disassociative kind of falling apart thing, which, is stuff we started on Adore, Machina. So it harkens back more to that type of work as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome. The seventh question: how was it for you to produce the album yourself, and what were the benefits and the challenges?
I don't mind producing. I mean, I've always produced all their work. It's just usually I have help with somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing. I can't say I know what I'm doing, but I know what I want. So that's the advantage, is like, I'm going to get what I want because I'm the person, I'm not negotiating with dad about doing 400 takes. The bad side is I got to be bad cop. I got to sit there and tell somebody that their version of my reality isn't good enough. And of course, at some point they get grumpy and say, well, that works for you, but it doesn't work for me. And that's when you have to sort of navigate the politics. I'm not a big fan of having to be bad cop. I mean, like, going way back in Pumpkin's history, I get a lot of the blame for playing a lot in the records. But what people forget is that was Butch Vig's decision. It was Butch Vig's decision to have me play on those records. It wasn't my decision. Now, I can't say I didn't agree with it at the time for a variety of reasons, but I wasn't the one standing up saying, hey, I want to do all this shit, because I knew it was going to cause a bunch of problems with the band.
Right.
So I'm not a big fan of being that guy. And anyway, so it is what it is. But we're all grown up now, so it's a lot different. Everyone's been great. I got no complaints about the band, how we work together now. I mean, everyone's just been fantastic.
The eighth question is: what sort of themes and concepts inspired the songwriting on Seer?
Well, I mean, I'm not here to be political, but we live in a very, very fractious time. Families are being divided by politics and social issues. Communities are being divided. There seems to be at different times unequal application of the law, unequal application of the legislative. I mean, this is a very, now, historically, there have been other times in American history where, we've had these kind of convulsions of social and political issues, and we've always managed to come out of them. And so one would like to be hopeful, but as just one person, and as one person who's been on this planet for 54 years and counting, it doesn't seem to be trending positively in my estimation. But I'm naturally a hopeful person, even though I have a rep for being a bit sanguine and depressive, mostly from lack of vitamin D, which we can talk about some other time, which involves lead poisoning. I was actually born with lead poisoning, which is a whole interesting trope. We can go down the rabbit hole sometime, Ash. But
I never knew that.
Yeah, my mother went to the high school in Chicago with the highest lead content in the water.
Wow.
So my doctor theorized that I was born with lead poisoning.
Wow.
And so, if anybody knows anything about lead poisoning, it suppresses vitamin D production. So you're literally born depressed. You're literally inability to be happy like other people, because you just don't have the faculty to make the chemicals. Anyway, I'm naturally a positive person, my reputation aside. So it's very hard for me to look and kind of like going back to Zeitgeist. Like when I put out Zeitgeist, I mean, people were like, this is very dark. This is very paranoid. What the fuck are you talking about? And 14 years later, actually, it's actually pretty beneath the mark compared to where we are right now. I mean, when you talk about everything from spying to, now they're talking about going in people's text messages and reading text messages to stop, quote unquote, disinformation. So, I feel like I'm just one soul against the, the cosmic digital wind here, trying to navigate. So I guess Seer is sort of very disassociative. And oh, by the way, I'm sure a few of you in this chat are parents. So it's enough to try to navigate difficult times in history by yourself. I mean, you can read plenty of books about people who do, and then you add children into the mix and you worry about their future and where this is all going. So it veers from the paranoid to the hopeful. So, just another dystopic album from the dystopic Pumpkins factory.
Yeah, every day there's just new revelations and confirmed things happening that, really warrant a lot of the paranoia. Today, I got the push notification from the Wall Street Journal about the Johnson and Johnson suntan, the Sunblock, the Neutrogena and Aveeno brands that they just had to recall because it's tied to cancer and it has this cancer-causing chemical that's been proven. And so now they're recalling all this stuff. And I'm currently in Lake Tahoe, so I go out on the water a lot, and I'm always trying to find the organic, sunblock that doesn't have all the junk in it, which is obviously much more expensive. And some of my friends always tease me, all right, tinfoil hat with your $100 sunblock and da 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 da. I'm like, no, you get what you pay for, because you're literally rubbing chemicals into your skin, which is like your largest organ. And so today, Wall Street Journal published that article, and they just had to recall, millions of sunblock tubes. So, it always pays to be aware, because unfortunately, a lot of times the stuff that people might, try and chastise you as some kind of paranoid pariah, a lot of times it's warranted. And so today it's the sunblock story. So yeah, everyone in the sun, be careful of what you're rubbing into yourself.
We grew up in a world, right? The magic of plastics. I'm a little older than you. The magic of plastics. Like, plastics are great. Everybody used plastics. We used to microwave with plastics. I'm sure some people on here still microwave with plastics. And then one day they admitted, oh yeah, the plastics seep. They seep into your food, cause toxicity. And oh, by the way, this stunts, everything from immune systems to testosterone, particularly in a male, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh yeah, so the plastics that I was told my whole life were safe, and you can drink out of this cup, on and on and on. Anyway, everyone's able to Google all these things. I'm not a doctor. I can only tell you what I experience over here in my little corner of the digital world.
Billy, what kind of water do you drink? That's not on the question list. That's just my question.
If I drink bottled water, which you really shouldn't drink out of plastics, but if I drink bottled water, I drink Essentia, which is a high pH water. Mm-hmm. But it'd be preferable not to drink out of any plastics at all.
Yeah, I have an Icelandic water subscription. That's another thing some people kind of joke, because I take the bottled water seriously. But again, it's fascinating. If you look at Dasani, which is Coca-Cola's purified water, and Aquafina, which is Pepsi's, those are actually illegal in a lot of parts of the world, because they confirm that whatever purification chemicals are putting in there is the same cancer-causing chemical in French fries. So you can't even buy Dasani in the UK. It's completely illegal. Anyway, we digress. Back to the top 10 questions. Don't drink Dasani water, courtesy of Sumerian Records. You're welcome. Question number 9. One of the things I've always loved about the Pumpkins is your willingness to experiment and sort of do whatever you want. On Seer, there are synths that sound like guitars and guitars that sound like synths. How do you see these songs transitioning to the live stage?
Actually really well. I think people get lost sometimes in production, but a lot of these songs are actually pretty heavy. So I think they're going to go quite well. I'm putting together the set for our 2 shows in September, and it'll be interesting, because I think a song like Seer will fit in right alongside the classic rock stuff that we do. I think because it's always about the heaviness of the groove and everything. So, the thing I would say for somebody, if you want to follow what I'm saying, is just listen to Seer really, really loud. You know what I mean?
Are you going to play Witch live?
Yeah, we're talking about it.
Nice.
That key is a killer, though. That's going to be.
Yeah.
Black. That's way up there, buddy.
Yeah.
We might go down to the Hendrix key for that one. Half step down.
All right, question 10. Really been connecting with the new album and loving it as of late. After hearing Birch Grove and discovering what it means to you and the inspiration behind it, I wanted to ask, what other tracks on the album stand out to you as being the most meaningful and personal, both lyrically and in their composition?
Yeah, I don't know, because to me the album's still a bit of a mystery to me. I mean, I'm not saying I write in code. I don't do it on purpose. I just kind of write what I feel, and then years later I'll listen and be like, oh, this is a lot of heavy shit in here that you were talking about, that maybe that's my way of dealing with heavy shit. So I think something like Birch Grove is overtly, about my children and my relationship to them, and particularly being a much older person than them, and worrying about whether or not I'll be around to see all the great things that will happen to them in their lives. But I think they're all pretty personal, you know. I mean, even a song like which, you know, is a bit of a wink. There's a lot of heavy stuff in there if you really kind of drill down. So I don't know. It's weird. It's not an answer, but I'm often surprised by the songs like 10 years or 20 years later that have meaning for me, and then the ones that don't have meaning for me, because it switches.
Right. All right, very cool. Well, those are the 10 questions that I believe were curated from the fans via management. Billy, there are a few fun questions in the chat, but that's up to you if you want to continue on anymore, if we should call it.
Sure. It's been quick, so you know, I have a few minutes.
Well, clearly I'm going to start with this one then, sir. Will T asked, AEW or WWE? Clearly the answer is NWA. Next question.
Yeah, no, that's a weird question.
We can go to another one here. What else? We got Von Mossman asked, how was promoting the album without touring behind versus the usual touring and promoting?
Well, you know, we did that before we knew Ash. We did that on Shiny, where we put out the record, but then we did the tour that was the Shiny tour was essentially focused on our 90s albums. That was a bit of a weird thing, but I also thought it was important for us to kind of reframe who we were going to be in the future. That as a live band, we were going to be more supple about kind of trying to give people what they wanted, because we'd spent so many years not giving the people what they wanted, and it wasn't going the right direction.
Right.
We were talking about doing very special kind of release shows around Seer that just never happened. In fact, Linda Strawberry and I had devised this elaborate kind of immersive theater performance for the band. Like, let's say we would sell 200 tickets to a warehouse in LA. The band would literally perform in the crowd with people around and stuff. Like you could stand behind James waving a guitar to stuff like that. Unfortunately, that of course never got off the ground, because right about the time we were trying to figure it out what the business model the whole thing would be, that's when COVID started coming and just blew everything apart. So I don't know. I mean, look, I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound sort of strange. Any band that's been around for 33 years, you know, the majority of the audience comes wanting to hear the music that they're attached to. And I don't really particularly have a problem with it. What I do have a problem with is being in a context where I can't play new music in an effective and balanced way. So for example, when we do these festival dates, we're actually playing a lot of new music, but I also feel that it belongs in the set with the stuff we would, let's say, normally play. So there's a context for it. But I don't know. I think I don't put the blame on the audience, but I do think that in general, and I can only speak to the American public, they've been conditioned that a concert is now just a greatest hit show. That's for everyone. I mean, you go see anybody that's past 30 years of being together as a band. I mean, you show me a band that's out there not really doing greatest hit sets, I'll high five you, but because I just they're not really.
There is one question here that I thought was interesting. Robert Hingila asked, having a daughter that is a beginning songwriter, what are some things you now know after a long, successful career that you wish you would have known when you started out?
Well, you know, I think the critical juncture for a young songwriter is their family, which is probably who they're most going to come in contact with, or their friends. Everybody tends to praise the person over imitation more so than originality. When I was a young songwriter and I would write something that sounded familiar to people, I would get praised. Oh, that's really good, because that would equate in people's minds to success. But the stuff that I was doing that they didn't understand or that they would shit on, was the stuff that ended up being the stuff that's why we're here talking all these years later. So it's very difficult to foster originality in a young artist. That's somebody who has, whether it's a parent or a teacher or a friend, who can spot there's something unique. And I will always give credit to my ex-wife, Chris Fabian, who we started in having a relationship, I guess, around 1986, somewhere around there. Yeah, and she was the first person in we lost Ash.
Sorry, it's an incoming call. I just shut it down.
Is that Jimmy Iovine calling you again?
No, but that's a good meeting to get.
Dr. Dre?
Not yet. Maybe next week.
My ex-wife was the first person in my entire life that recognized I was doing something original, however poorly I was doing it. And that was super valuable. Because up until that point, everybody just didn't get it.
Okay, and we'll end with one question, which maybe is serendipitous to the jokes you just had there. This is from, where did it go?
Vince McMahon.
Wouldn't that be great? From Waylon Price. With all the changes with album sales, streaming, and radio, where do you see music in the next 5 years headed? Here's the answer to that, guys. For $99 right now, behind a paywall, you can hear me and Billy talk about the future of the record business for only 60 minutes. I'm just kidding. We're not trying. That's the future. Go ahead, Billy.
What was the question?
The question was, with all the changes with streaming and radio and album sales and video and distribution, where do you see the next 5 years going in the music business?
I think the future of the music business is peer-to-peer relationships. Think about this, and Ash, you can speak more acutely. If you look at the biggest music artists in America right now, they really aren't selling much at all, right? Or they're only selling to a very motivated part of the population, and much of the American population is completely disconnected from music. The music business is happy to serve a very small crowd who will like click and hashtag and whatever the fuck people do these days. And they're willing to let 90% of the audience just ebb away and do something else, play video games or, watch movies on Netflix or whatever. It's not really a smart model. And then a band like the Pumpkins has to navigate in a world with an artist who's got 100 million Instagram followers. Okay, I wish I had 100 million Instagram followers. But the fact of the matter is there aren't a lot of bands on this planet that can go out and sell a lot of tickets. So you're in this weird space where you're not as big as somebody who's 19 and has their ass out, you know what I mean, for lack of a better way to put it. But you've demonstrated an ability to generate commerce, which of course is at the heart of the music business. As Ken Berry, former head of Virgin, once said to me, it's called the music business for a reason, right? So I think, as demonstrated by the interest we had, for example, on the Pumpkins' first archival release, the show from Japan in 1992. I mean, we sold a lot in 48 hours, and those records are being pressed right now. And Ash is going to help me, hopefully, with reissuing Zeitgeist and Future Embrace. So we can do a lot of cool stuff and serve the people who are really interested and possibly entice other people to be interested, because we're not compromising into a system that really doesn't give a fuck about us overall, because we can't sell cans of soda pop. And I didn't get into the music business to sell cans of soda pop, so it's all right by me. But it's weird to navigate the business with people, and I'm sure it happens to you, Ash, where you're navigating with people that, like, because you can't generate this kind of stupid set of numbers, you sort of, it's like out of sight, out of mind. But yet a lot of the American public or the international public is not served by the community. I know, Ash, you're very passionate about trying to bring back kind of rock back into a mainstream focus. You know, there's a lot of people out there that want rock. There's a lot of great rock artists on your label, Sumerian. But we have to build kind of a new way to do it, because if we go to the old systems, like look at the Grammy Awards. You see much rock and roll on the Grammy Awards? You know what? Rock artists still sell. If you want to, you don't want me on the Grammy Awards, that's fine. But there's a lot of rock artists selling a lot of records, a lot of tickets. As far as the Grammy Awards concerned, there's no such thing as rock and roll anymore. I mean, it doesn't exist. Billboard Music Awards, all that stuff, those artists do not exist. It's like they don't exist in that business anymore because it's not convenient for those people. So we have to kind of almost build our own business. And that's what you can do as a consumer. You make your choices and you can have a peer-to-peer relationship with an artist, and you can support that artist. Look, Katie Cole, who works with the Pumpkins, our friend, she did a Kickstarter, raised a bunch of money with support from her fans and hopefully some Pumpkins fans. Now she's able to make videos, do her own music, have her own career. I mean, what could be more dignified than to be supportive, make music, don't compromise, don't have to do stupid stuff like over-sexualize yourself to attract an audience that doesn't really care about you. Be a dignified artist, be a dignified person in this world, and hopefully build something. That's really the model that we're all trying to build here, I think.
Yeah. And what I would add to what Billy just said, you know, you can't, the music business is so vast. There's so many different types of artists. It's never been easier to release music. It's also hard to cut through the noise because there's something like 40 to 60,000 songs uploaded every week on Spotify. But what I've found in my time in it is that you can't compare apples to oranges, to peaches, to kiwi, to tomatoes, which is technically a fruit, to watermelon or whatever else. And what I mean by that is that you'll see an artist who has millions and millions of Instagram followers and hundreds of millions of streams on a song, but they only draw a couple thousand tickets, if even. They don't sell that many T-shirts, and a large part of society has no idea who they are. There's artists that stream way higher than Smashing Pumpkins, but could never come close to selling out Madison Square Garden or the Forum. They can have way more Instagram followers, but you're not going to walk down the street and see their shirt like you would a Nirvana or a Smashing Pumpkin shirt. There's also other artists that have incredibly low streaming in general, but sell wildly high physical, wildly high. And then there's other artists that all of their fans are on Spotify and they really want to put out vinyl. They really want to put out physical product, and their fans just don't care. The one biggest thing I think facing specifically rock music, you know, when we were all younger, you had things like MTV. So it was more of a bottleneck in the sense that like you could, you know, similar to what happened with Guns N' Roses and the Welcome to the Jungle music video, you know, Geffen was shelving the record. They didn't think they had anything. And a friend of mine, Tom Zutot, thought David Geffen promised he could pull a power move if he worked for him. So when they were going to shelve GNR, he said, please play this music video we just made. And they played it once at 3 a.m. They thought they were going to get an ad and that was going to be in prime time. They played it once, and that's all it took. And that music video single-handedly launched Appetite for Destruction, which became one of the biggest debut records of all time. And had that music video not been played, who knows if we'd even be talking about Guns N' Roses right now. And the reason I bring that up is because obviously MTV is far gone, barring from something Billy said on Squawk Box, which I thought was incredibly simple and powerful and accurate. You know, MTV basically kept the name and they said goodbye to music, right? And so now the MTV that we have today is more of a user-based one, to where people are making their own videos. If you look what just happened with, you know, Fleetwood Mac and Dreams, with a completely organic viral video of the guy, you know, skateboarding and drinking the cranberry juice, that made millions and millions of young people discover Fleetwood Mac for the first time. If you look at Bohemian Rhapsody, which Hollywood didn't think a rock and roll biopic would go do anywhere near the numbers it did, Bohemian Rhapsody broke every single biopic record at the box office in the history of motion picture cinema. Bigger than any athlete, any politician, any serial killer, any musician, any scientist, anything. It was the biggest one of all time. And what that movie did single-handedly for Queen's entire catalog is completely astronomical. The biggest challenge rock faces now is there has to be other forms of awareness, because not everything can be a viral video on TikTok or, you know, a big sync at the end of a massive, you know, Netflix show. So I think it's up to a lot of people in the rock community, both fans, record labels, managers, artists, to everyone to kind of work together and realize, hey, we all need to borrow from each other's expertise and work as a team for the sake of the good of the genre in general, which is, you know, high tides raise all ships, right? So if we're all floating in the rock and roll ocean, like, we all got to work together to stay above water and to get, you know, the tide to rise. So all of you guys are a part of that. We really appreciate you guys being here. Truth be told, every time somebody orders a vinyl and participates in something like this, it furthers the lifespan of everything that we do, which is to keep rock music alive and music in general. So we thank you guys for being here. Stay tuned for all the things Billy mentioned regarding Zeitgeist and a number of other releases that should get a proper reissue very soon here. And Billy's diligently working on the next album. It's only 33 songs, so I apologize for all of you who wanted it more in the 50 to 60 range. We're going to be stuck with 33. I guess Billy's getting tired. I don't know what to say, but 33 is a lucky number. So I've only heard pieces of instrumentally, but I can tell you some of the riffs are completely timeless, iconic fucking bangers. So the riffs are alive and well for those who are hoping for that. And other than that, I think we should probably let Billy get back to his life. And somebody said a Viper Room vinyl, a dream come true. And oh, by the way, I was with Billy in Nashville and he said something. I actually went and looked this up, and I'm not going to name anything, but there's a fun little question there about who is be on your Mount Rushmore for grunge. Everybody go look up on YouTube when the Smashing Pumpkins covered Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult somewhere in the Northwest. It's on YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in. Billy, I will talk to you soon. And everyone have a great week.
Thanks, everyone. God bless everyone. See you soon. Bye.
God bless.